One of the most worrisome things that emerges from the thick intelligence file we have on Iraq's biological weapons is the existence of mobile production facilities used to make biological agents. Let me take you inside that intelligence file and share with you what we know from eyewitness accounts. We have first-hand descriptions of biological weapons factories on wheels and on rails.
The degree of resistance that the Iraqis showed to our investigation of their biological weapons program exceeded all other deceptions and resistances. So I had to conclude that, for Saddam, biological weapons were his weapons of choice. Richard Butler, former UNSCOM chairman.
Mr. Blix, many people say the United States really did not know whether Iraq possessed WMDs or not. But let me take you back to 1995 when Saddam's son-in-law Hussein Kamel defected to Jordan. He was debriefed extensively by the CIA. At the end of those sessions, the CIA came out that Saddam really destroyed all his WMDs weapons back in '91, fearing that the US might, catch him in the act. So the notion that the administration did not know really does not tally with reality. More importantly, let me perhaps refresh your memory and the memory of our viewers. Scott Ritter, one of the top UN inspectors, part of UNSCOM, he was on record, as time wore on, he came to the conclusion Iraq did not possess WMDs, and he said so publicly.
Yes, I remember that Scott Ritter said that in 2003. However, it is very hard to prove that something does not exist. And that was really what we were asked to do. We carried out 700 inspections in about 500 sites. And what we could say was that with all the professionalism, we did not find anything. We didn't say that it was chemically free of any weapons of mass destruction. But the probability was that there was nothing left.
Part of the reason we went into Iraq the main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq.
Based on our findings of 33 randomly picked neighborhoods in Iraq in 2004, we estimated that about 100,000 people had died above the normal death rate in Iraq. By 2006, our nationwide sample indicated that that number was up to about 650,000 deaths, above the normal death rate associated with the period of occupation in Iraq. And there's a lot of complementary evidence out there that our study has to be in the right ballpark. All the evidence from morgues, this evidence of overflowing morgues. Also, the stories now coming out in a recent report from Oxfam of hundreds of thousands of war widows in Iraq, or the UN's claim some months ago that there were hundreds of thousands of war orphans in Iraq. That just doesn't mesh with only 60 or 70 or 80,000 people having died in this conflict, as the U.S. and Iraqi government are reporting on those occasions when they give a number.
And our online estimate now stands at 996,000, so it's about to cross the 1 million mark.
With respect to 9/11, of course, you've had the story that's been public out there. The Czechs alleged that Mohammed Atta, the lead attacker, met in Prague with a senior Iraqi intelligence official 5 months before the attack.
Imagine a world in which Saddam Hussein was there, stirring up even more trouble in a part of the world that had so much resentment and so much hatred that people came and killed 3,000 of our citizens. I've heard this theory about, everything was just fine until we arrived, and kind of the stir up the hornet's nest theory. It just doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned. The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle East. What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing. except for it's part of, and nobody's ever suggested in this administration that Saddam Hussein ordered the attack. Iraq was the lesson of September 11th is take threats before they fully materialize, Ken. Nobody's ever suggested that the attacks of September the 11th were ordered by Iraq.
I want the American people to hear this very clearly. Listen carefully to what the Vice President is saying, because there is no connection between Saddam Hussein and the attacks of September 11th, period. The 9/11 Commission has said that's true. Colin Powell has said it's true. But the Vice President keeps suggesting that there is. There is not. And in fact, any connection with Al-Qaeda is tenuous at best.
The Senator's got his facts wrong. I have not suggested there's a connection between Iraq and 9/11.
It was a tragic miscalculation, and it was not only the question of the weapons of mass destruction. That was the point they advanced in defense of going to war, because it was the point that was the most easy to sell to the public, and to the US Congress, and to the British Parliament. But there were other arguments, such as the introduction of democracy. Well, that failed also. To introduce democracy by occupation and by force is not so easy. There was also the allegation that they would take out Al-Qaeda, but Al-Qaeda was not there. Al-Qaeda came later on. And there was this allegation that this would help Israel. I don't think one would agree that it's helped Israel very much. If it helped anybody, it was probably were the Iranians and the Shiites.
Stephen has changed a lot since he's come back from Iraq. I don't know why he says everything's fine, because it's not.
Why the fuck are we there? We better get that oil, right? The U.S. Army is not the fucking Peace Corps. The Marines are not the Peace Corps. That's not why we're in Iraq. We're in Iraq for money and oil. Look at any other war in the history of the world and tell me it's not about money. This better be about money, and if we don't get that oil and that money, then all the lives that are gone right now, they're all in vain. But you don't put 150,000 troops from all over the country in there and say we're there to create democracy. We're there to create money. They'll make money for us, you know. Somebody other than Dick Cheney better be getting their hands on it pretty soon.